Let's go.
Dr. Rosie Milligan, one of the most sought-after speakers on the circuit today. Her live internet talk show, Express Yourself, is the most provocative, thought-provoking, and talked-about radio show on the internet. There's no holds barred, and Dr. Milligan puts the B in bold. She brings it every Tuesday live at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Rosie has been proclaimed the most provocative female writer of the century. Her books include Satisfying the Black Man and Black Woman Sexually Made Simple, Why Black Men Choose White Women, and the book Nigga Please. These books have raised eyebrows across the country. She has authored 21 books and published 350 titles for authors nationwide. Check Dr. Rosie out at drrosie.com for her books, articles, and archives of her internet talk show. Sit at the feet of wisdom. Dr. Milligan is indeed a timekeeper and scorekeeper. She is the clock, calendar, and almanac for Black America. You need to hear her.
We are going to step right into part 2 of the topic. If men are from Mars and women are from Venus, is there enough space left to coexist, or are we spiraling into a full-blown gender war? How's everybody doing today? Somone, how are you doing?
Good morning. Doing well. Doing well.
Good, good. Yes, we have some good feedback from last week. Dr. Rosie suggested we do a part 2. You know, she's always starting stuff. And, you know, she's always trying to stir up some stuff in the pot. But when it's done, it's better than gumbo. Ain't that right, Dr. Rosie?
Absolutely. You know, yeah, I stirred it up so last week I got a few calls from the church house.
Well, we gonna just jump right into it. I do have a question. And this question is something I've been thinking about since the last show. And it's going to, you know, kind of go right into the continuation of it is. But when I think of the word bridge, I have so many different meanings, but parallel to what we were talking about last week, how important is it for men and women to be intentional with building a bridge together as it relates to partnership? Dr. Rosie, I first want to ask you that question because I think from the physiological and the psychological aspect, how important is it to be intentional with building a bridge for both a man and a woman?
I think it's so critical, and now it's more critical than ever before. Because when we think of bridge, we think of something that's going to help us cross over from one side to the next. We think of that transportation, and it's so important to build that bridge that we can build together and walk across together, because togetherness is what's going to sustain us psychologically and even from an economic standpoint. We cannot have this tug of war anymore. We just gonna all have to retreat and come back and say, no more war. We got to work together for the greater cause.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Somone, I have a question for you as well. Why do you think, should I say, what do you think are some of the challenges men and women face with getting to the place of building that bridge together when it comes to relationships?
I think it's one of the things is just being secure in understanding that the other person hears them and understands where they're coming from. I think part of what is a struggle when we attempt to communicate with each other is that we believe that the other person is not understanding us or hearing us or really understanding what we're trying to say. And so we have to take time to build the relationship, like really take time to build the friendship before it becomes a romantic relationship, so we can build that communication and learn the other person's communication style so that the person feels secure in whatever they're saying whenever they're trying to represent their thoughts in words, that the other person really understands what they're trying to say, that they're actively listening, and that it's a safe place to be vulnerable to really say what needs to be said.
That's good. That's good.
Ricky, can I jump in too? I think when we talk about building bridges, we have to understand that we need to build that bridge based on our culture and based on who we are. based on our adaptation to being here in America. When we build that bridge, we must understand that we are not Caucasian clones. I keep repeating that because that has a lot to do when you're trying to build a bridge that's not even in your DNA. You're going to have some issues.
Yes. No, that is true. That is true. And I think also too, Dr. Rosie, the cultural part of that, you're absolutely right. Every culture communicates differently. You know, I think a lot of times, and I say this, God created everyone. You know, we bleed the same blood. However, we come from different places as far as the hemisphere. And I think when you look at culture, there's a different way that we all express ourselves, whether it be with family, whether it be with friends, whether it be in relationships. However, one of the things that I have experienced personally is, as much as we would like to say that we're all like love is blind and love has no color lines, right? Well, every culture, in my opinion, loves differently. And it doesn't mean that love cannot be transcending and it can't come together as one. However, just from my own experience, and I'm gonna open it up to the those who are on the line, I just think that when it comes to expressing oneself from a cultural standpoint, it makes it a little bit more challenging when you're trying to cross over to another culture when you have yet to establish and understand within your own culture. You know, and a lot of times the dynamics are so crazy because let's say hypothetically you have an African American and you have Hispanic, right? And they come in together. Yes, they may have a lot of things in common. They may get along personality wise, but once you start having morals and beliefs and trends of culture, then there's a potential clash because now there's a misunderstanding. So now you have to now put more effort in your communication style, but you also have to compromise versus someone within your own, you know, race or your own culture. You have some understanding more and you have some other background. So those are a lot of parallels. And I think when it comes to communication, it has to be a point where it's intentional as far as understanding, no matter what it is. And a lot of times we don't have the patience to be understanding. So what I want to do is I want to just allow the number to be read for those who want to, you know, call in and to answer. We also just want to let you know we have an active chat line, and Miss Somone, I think she's going to be taking care of that. If you have something to say in the chat, go ahead and put it in. We're going to address it. Those who want to call in, can we get that number, please?
Yes, that number is 669-444-9171. That's 669-444-9171.
So
And I would
yes, go ahead,
like to
Simone.
add to
Recording
what
in
you're
progress.
speaking is that it even is not only is it cultural, but it's also regional. So it's been
Yeah.
my experience, you know, dating people from different parts of the region. So I'm originally from Miami, Florida. And so talking with men from New York, St. Louis, here in California, there are ways of communication that are different that can come off as rude or disrespectful to someone who is not from that region, and that can cause bits of contention too within trying to communicate with each other. So taking the time to understand that that is something to consider as well.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the region is interesting. Like for example, with me, I have had the best experience, and I know we got some people on the line that are from the East Coast. I'm not going to say their name, but I, I've had the best experiences with conversation with women from the East Coast and down south than I have here in the West. And I was born and raised here in the West, right? But as far as conversations and getting along, like when I spent time, you know, on the East Coast, you know, back in the day, doing, you know, just doing different projects, and I was able to connect better, you know, with those on the East Coast just because of, I guess, the way they were brought up, the way they were raised. And then when I would come back home, I would see the similarities, I would see differences, but also I would see the challenges. And I'm like, wait a minute. I says, why is it so difficult having relationships and conversations here? When I go back east, I mean, more friendlier, more stimulating conversations. And so when I was looking at it, I was like, and then when I started talking to different women, they also had different similarities. So I just think that when you look at region, look at culture, there are the challenges, but at the same time, how willing and open are you to compromise and to be vulnerable in your conversation? And I think with relationships, period, people continue to be challenged with stepping out their comfort zone and being able to listen versus just being heard. And I think when you have that kind of approach, it kind of opens up more dialogue. What do you think, Dr. Rosie?
I think so too. I think people have to be willing to compromise. That's the main issue. We don't think the same, but we have to look at what can we come together on
Yes.
that can make it work. We don't have to agree on everything. Agreeing on everything is not important to make both of us happy. So there have to be some compromise, and a lot of people are not willing to compromise. And regional is definitely makes a difference. I hail from Mississippi. That's why all the men are always chasing me, because women from, women from the South has a whole different outlook on how you need to relate in a relationship.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and this is to both of you, Dr. Rosie, Somone. How important is it to be heard versus for someone? How important is it to be heard versus you listening to someone? How important? I mean, why do you think there's a challenge with some people wanting to be heard versus listening to somebody?
So for me, I think the answer to that is it depends on your level of maturity as a person. And using myself as an example, when I was younger in my 20s, it was more important to be heard than it was for me to listen. And so in my older age, I understand that it's important to invest in the other person by listening and making sure they feel heard and understood. And that will allow them to, break down some walls and some barriers that they might have up, and they will be then hopefully a little more open to then hearing the other person. Like, some people see that you're actively listening, they see that you're trying to understand them and you're making an effort to hear them, and so that then kind of opens them up to be willing to do the same thing for you, and so it becomes more important to listen.
So that's jumping out of that me syndrome.
Yes,
Ricky.
yes, it is. That me, yeah. And also too, for those who want to chime in, you can, those who are actually on Zoom, if you want to chime in, just go ahead and raise your hand. And those who are actually listening on phone, you can go ahead and jump in as well. That me syndrome is that's the biggest challenge. That's one of the biggest, like one of the things that I've encountered with the war of communication with someone is wanting to be heard at all cost. In other words, as I'm trying to talk and explain or express, I can never finish my sentence because a person is already thinking about the response and they're already having a defense already set and just can't wait. And so when they're jumping in and it's like, well, hold on, I'm not finished. Well, no, I just want to, well, let me finish. And then now it's a tug of war because now we have an argument starting on top of a conversation that has yet to even be developed. And so now you have a misunderstanding with someone who wants to be heard so bad that they're risking the relationship and the ties of communication by just focusing on one thing, and that is themselves. You know, and I think that a lot of times creates distance and also people not willing to speak and not wanting to communicate. And so how do we get past that? You know, how do we get past that situation? Because that's a very common thread. It's not just in intimate relationships, but it's at work. You know, it's with family members. I mean, you see it all the time, even with customer service. If you're trying to pay a bill or you're trying to ask a question, you are literally having the customer service rep cutting you off as you're trying to explain what it is that you're seeking or what it is you're trying to understand.
Rick, I'm going to jump in. I see Charles has his hand up too. It comes a time with that type of dialogue for you to ask that person, wait, hold up. Is this going to be a one-way conversation or two-way? Mm-hmm. Then that kind of bring them to think about, oh, I am out of line. I'm not listening. You gotta let them know, because otherwise you're just wasting time. You might as well, when we're ready to have a two-way conversation, let's start this all over again. I can see right now that there's something going on with you that you want to take it one side. Maybe this is not the best time for us to have this conversation, and you need to end it because you're wasting time.
Yeah.
And I see Brother Charles has his hand up, Ricky.
All right, Charles.
I don't believe that. Well, for me personally, I never want anyone to hear me. I want you to always listen to me, because if you hear me, you're not taking me serious. So if I'm laughing and joking and we're kidding around and we're just having a time like out, then yes, you can hear me. But if I'm having a conversation with someone, I want you to listen to me, not hear me. Because when you are having a conversation and it's a serious conversation, you need to listen. That's how you open up the communication. And so, again, that's one of those things that we have a difference where, you can say where who's from Mars and who's from Venus, but if you're not listening, then you're not communicating.
That's a good point, Charles. So my question to you is this, and that's a very good point. How do you differentiate that in a conversation, and then once you start to see the difference, then how do you actually put that before the person to let them know that you are aware of the fact that they're not listening or they're just hearing you? Like, how do you actually break that wall?
I preface the conversation. I need you to listen to me. I don't need you to hear me. I need you to listen to me.
Now, you do know people struggle with the difference. You know that.
Yes.
Of course they do. And
I
that's
hear
because,
you. I
again,
heard you.
that's
I
not
hear
even
you.
the culture. That's just about upbringing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that regional thing again, okay?
No, it is. It is. And you know what's so funny? Like, I just have to say this. I know that in the past, during certain relationships, when I was saying something that the person didn't want to hear, they will always use, I hear you, I hear what you're saying, but. And I was like, well, what? Are you really, did you hear what I said, or did you hear what I said? No, I heard what I said, so what did I say? They couldn't even tell me what I said.
No, I always tell them to complete my thought. If you interrupted me, complete my thought. Since you know what I'm getting ready to say next, or if you know what I'm getting ready to say, you already understand me. Complete my thought, and then they kind of be quiet. Is because they can't complete because they don't know what you're getting ready to say. So I've adopted practice. Say, okay, you interrupted me, so now complete my thoughts. I want to see if you understand me. Okay, because you want them to listen to understand you. So if they already understand you, know where you're going. Okay, now you can interrupt because now you understand me. Most times they don't.
When they say I hear you, like Ricky, you said a person, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
What they're really saying is, I don't want to hear no more. I got it.
Yeah,
move on to something else.
Yeah. Let's move on. Yeah, let's move on. That is one of the biggest challenges, because I know for me, listening requires patience. And a lot of people don't exercise patience in conversations. And so what I've learned to do as I've gotten older is really look at a person's patience level to be able to determine what kind of conversation I'm going to have with them. Am I going to have an extensive conversation, or is it going to be a simple, basic conversation? Because you can't force an impatient person to have an intensive dialogue with you, because they're not going to last. They're going to get, either fidgety, or they're going to try to change the subject, or they're going to say, I want to talk about that right now. And it's like, well, what are we on the phone for? Or why are we engaging? And so I think a lot of times the wars that happen between relationships is not willing to work together to be able to achieve that common goal. And that common goal is really understanding. That's why one question I want to propose to the audience is, when it comes to understanding with both sides, what are we willing to do to get an understanding, as far as scaling back from trying to prove a point that we're trying to make? Because a lot of times proving a point versus making a point is going to either make or break a conversation. So, Somone, what do you think about that?
I think that the answer to that goes way back to personal development. We have to be strong and confident in ourselves, our self-esteem, how we view ourselves in order to be confident and show up in a way that is successful in a conversation. So if you are not confident in yourself and you're looking to others for esteem, then you go into conversations wanting to be heard and feeling misunderstood all the time. But if you've spent time to develop within your own self, your own confidence and esteem and standing firm in who you are as a person, that allows you to then have more space to get to know the other person and be patient in conversations because you don't have such a need to be heard or understood because you already know, like, you know who you are, you know what you're about. If this person doesn't understand what you're trying to say, then this is not the person to have this type of conversation with.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
evaluating, this person based on, like you said, how far you can go with a certain conversation, what kind of conversations you can have with them. And it really allows you to sit back and truly listen to understand the other person because you're not busy proving yourself within the conversation because you're already in confidence within yourself.
Yeah, I think that's
Rick,
good.
let me jump in. I think
Mhm.
where you're going with the show with the women from Venus and men are from Mars, I think there's a dynamic dialogue for us to have. Because what we're really saying, in order to have a wholesome relationship, we must recognize the
The
differences.
differences.
We
Yes.
have
Yes.
to recognize the difference. Because women they like to give you the long version. So you got to sit
Yes.
there and wait because I got to drag this thing out. And you
Yes.
don't want to drag it out. You like to get right to the point
Mm-hmm.
with what you want. So when we look at women, how they think and how men think, once we understand that,
Mm-hmm.
then that's when we can build that bridge because we like to go all around the Murray bush to get to what we're trying to say, and you're trying to say, well, come on, what you really trying to say? You won't even let me finish. What you really trying to say? I'm trying to say what I'm saying. You need to listen.
Anyway,
Okay.
men are A to B and women are A to Z. Okay.
Yeah. You know what's so interesting about that is that, and I agree with you, Dr. Rosie. However, I think men today really struggle with setting the tone to get that dialogue started because a lot of times men will be so impatient or just frustrated and irritated that they'll lash out and say something and they'll cause the woman to feel a certain kind of way as if what she has to say isn't important or trying to shut her down. Because I've had a lot of women have told me, they said one thing they don't like is when a man tries to shut them down and not allow them to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
then I say to them, I say, okay, well, and I get that because I see men do it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
how would you like to be talked to, or how does a man's tone need to be for you to not feel that way? And so I think the dialogue that we were talking about earlier, we have to have more dialogue as far as asking questions about how do you like to be talked to, or what makes you feel like you can, be positive or confident in this conversation, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's different. You got some women from the streets. They
Mm-hmm.
can they can go toe to toe with a dude like it ain't nothing, but you got some women that are more, from the suburbs, or they're more from the south, and so their demeanor's a little bit lower, and so they may be a little bit more sensitive, not as proud. So you can't just expect every woman to be the same. So I think for men have to kind of learn how to, and then have the patience to really know who he's dealing with, like we talked about earlier, and then ask those questions to make sure that he's meeting the needs of that woman, because once he understands where that woman is needing and where she's coming from, then she'll be willing to be comfortable to meet him where he's at. And I
I,
just believe that dialogue needs to be healthy.
Rick,
I think at the
go ahead.
beginning you have to just let her get it out. Okay.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times she just wants to get it out, and once she gets it out, okay, then you can have a dialogue. But the thing is, that when she first comes to you, I think she needs to just get it out.
Well,
That's why she's. Go ahead.
let me ask this question to the women on the line. How do you feel when you're talking to your man and you really want to get your point across and he says,
Mm-hmm.
I got it. I
Mm-hmm.
got it. And you
Eh,
haven't
eh,
even finished and he got it.
He
Now
might have.
I want
He
a
might.
woman on the line to
Uh,
open up and tell me how they feel
mm-hmm.
when they're conversating with a man and you're trying to finish your spiel and he tell you I got it. Shawana, Brenda, somebody open up Toya. Come on, y'all, talk to me. Don't leave me out there in the water like I'm the
I
owner
won't
of
leave you
somebody's
out there,
pet.
Dr. Rosie. I will not leave you out there. First of all, I think that conversations are always on different levels, and a lot of times when we cut off the mate, because that's what happens, we cut them off because we get stuck on they said something and you want to say it back to them and you want to say what you need to say at that particular point, and you don't hear anything else that comes after that. And a lot of times we have to pause, especially when we're conversing with one another. We have to pause and listen to the other person.
Yeah.
Because we can't always want to get our point across. It's not always about our point.
Yeah.
It's about conversing with one another and being on the same point with each other. So we have to take a pause. And I think that we do have to do that. But that wasn't the question, Dr. Rosie. What was your question that you wanted me to answer?
When you're trying to get a point over, you're talking to your mate, and they just tell you right in the middle, you haven't gotten halfway through your story. You know, we have a long story, we go a long way around,
Oh my
and they tell
God.
you, I got it. I got
Yeah,
it. How do you
yeah.
feel? Do you feel shut off? Do you feel like the conversation needs to end, or he's not interested in what you're saying, or he counted so insignificant? You know, I got it. Why
That
can't he let you finish?
Yeah, that's our past baggage that we have that comes out, that shows out sometimes. Because when they say, you know what, I got this. Okay, I know what you're trying to say. It kind of irritates us, right?
Yes.
I know it irritates me. It's like, what do you mean you got it? You didn't even let me finish what I was trying to say. I need to say what I want to say. And it just irritates me when people do that. Even, I mean, with anybody though, it's not even just with your mate. When you're in the process of telling a story and someone says, I got this. I know what you're trying. No, you don't know what I'm going to say. You know, and it's not always about arguing, but it goes into an argument. Why? Because you weren't allowed to speak your mind. So I think that comes with that listening part. You know, you have to listen so that, and if you need to write your things down, write it down and then listen. At least listen to the other person. If the other person said they got it, say, okay, well, what do you have? Let me hear what you have. Put it back on them since they
Now
said they have it.
you ready for an argument because they didn't have it. Now they
They
go,
Yeah.
well,
didn't
I
have it.
said I got it. Just take it at
There
that.
you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
but no, you have to listen. You have to listen. I mean, especially if you're conversing with one another, you have to listen.
So let me
That's
ask you something.
Sometimes it's okay to, when the person says I got it, sometimes it's okay to say okay and let them run into the brick wall that you were trying to avoid them running into. Because sometimes that's the only way that the person then begins to value what it is that what you're trying to say. So for me, I'm not really trying to argue. And so if that's your stance in the conversation, you know, you've just taught me that you don't have the patience for the conversation. You don't value what I have to say. So I'm not going to force what I'm trying to say onto you because you've clearly shown me that you're not interested. I'm okay with that. But you will be back to say, what were you trying to say again? Because I tried that thing, or I just let it. Sometimes you just gotta let people fail in order for them to value the things that you're trying to say, so that moving forward, they will be more open to listen and hear you out, so that they can get the value in what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
No, that's
The
good.
other thing that I wanted to mention, a caller mentioned this in the chat last week regarding tone. And she was mentioning that when a man uses a certain tone in his communication, it triggers her, right? And so that kind of started a whole conversation around how you were raised. And what I mean by that is women who were raised with a father in the household and women who weren't. And that matters in communication, you know, with men as well. So women who were not raised by their fathers, they don't have the same training. Their ears don't have the same training to know the difference in male tone and what those differences in tones means. So I was raised with my father in the household, and so my ears are trained to catch when the male voice and their tone changes and what that means. And so I'm able that now is a skill that I'm able to use in communication, and I can recognize when tones are changing and what that means, and it helps me communicate with men because I recognize what those tone differences are. And so I think that's just another reason why it's important to take the time to get to know the person that you're communicating with. Because if you know that she didn't grow up with a father in the household, then there are tone changes that she may not pick up on. And, you know, it may not be a cue for her in the way that it can be for someone else.
No, that's true. No, that's absolutely true. I know one young lady that I used to date back in the day. She would think that I was raising my voice at her when we were having a conversation, and I really wasn't. It's just that I was excited about the conversation, and my modulation went up. But she was like, "Why are you raising your voice to me?" I said, "I'm not really." "Yes, you are. Why are you?" I said, "No, no." I said, "I'm not." First of all, I said, "Hold on." I said, "You didn't do nothing to me." "Well, why is your voice raised?" I said, "Because the conversation's getting deep and my intensity level is rising." I said, "And that's me being excited. That's what my modulation is." So I had to kind of explain it to her. She's like, "Well, I just don't like the fact that you're yelling." But then I said, "Well, there are points in the conversation your voice is raising." I said, "It doesn't impact me because I know we're just having a conversation." So I have to kind of explain to her. So I appreciate what you said, Simone, because and she did not grow up with the father in the house. So it was just her and her mom. So she's not used to a male's voice as the modulation is going up and down. So after I explained it to her, it took her a while to get it. And then she got it and she was like, "Okay, hold on." I said, "Hold on." I said, "I'm not raising my voice." I said, "I'm just letting you know. My modulation is going up because my voice is shifting." I said, "But it's not because I'm mad and not because I'm arguing. It's just that that's the way the conversation is going." So I think that it is important to recognize tone, but also, too, to be aware of what a person is not used to and then be sensitive and be patient and explain to them exactly what you're doing versus just pushing them off. And I know a lot of times men, we do that. Sometimes we'll push a woman off or we'll disregard her because we don't take the time to explain ourselves. We just kind of say, "Oh, you know, whatever, just go on with that." Like, "Oh, girl, you tripping." And when you do that to a woman, you better not go to sleep. because what you're doing is you're kind of disregarding her feelings,
Right.
or what she's saying, instead of taking the time is finding out why she's saying it and then being able to explain. A lot of men don't do that. We don't take the time to explain ourselves.
The key word, you disregarded her what?
Yep.
Feelings.
Your feelings. That's it.
Okay, that's a key word
Yep.
with women. You cannot disregard her feelings. The reason she uses so many words is because she's trying to express her feelings to
Definitely.
you, not information. Okay, information will come later. That's why you have to let her get it out. How do I feel about what we're getting ready to say? Okay, once she sets the tone of how she feels, then you got to get into the information.
That's
Yep.
right. Listen to the feeling.
Feelings, yes, key word.
Now, Dr. Rose, I have a question for you. Why do you believe, or why do you feel that men struggle with being sensitive to a woman's feelings when she's having a dialogue and not being able to know if it's just her feelings or if it's just her just going off because she's just pissed off and mad?
I think sometimes men tend to want to solve problems.
Yeah.
Okay. And if they feel like whatever you're going through, if I can't solve the problem, because that's my role as the man. So if I can't solve the problem, I'm going to shut you down. I want you to just forget about it. Like a woman come home, she's talking about her day at work, what's happened at her job. The man might say, if he feel like he can't, well, just quit. Why don't you just leave? Just walk out. Because he cannot solve it. He doesn't want to deal with it. Men want to solve problems. So I think that's one of the greatest things. They shut us out when they can't solve the problem. And we're not even looking for you to solve the problem.
Yeah.
All we want you to do is just listen to us. We
Yeah,
just
but-
want you to hear us.
but
But you
women-
feel like you have to do something.
But women also have to be understanding that you're overloading the man's system with too many words. Okay.
I don't know about care about overloading
See,
your
there we
system.
see. There we go. There we
You've been
go.
overloading
There we
my
go.
system all day.
There
Come
we
on
go.
now.
There we go.
That's right, Dr. Rosie. Tell
There,
him.
there we go. See, that's the whole thing. But thing is, then you wonder how come he shuts you off. Okay. because you're overloading them. It's too much. Okay, slow down, slow down, slow down. Okay.
Too
In other
much for
words,
who?
It's too
Too
it's too
much
much.
much
for
for
As
who?
you
too much.
guys always say, stop, stop.
Too much
That's
for
too much.
him. Okay, it's too much for him. So you
Well,
gotta
I'm gonna teach him how to let it not be too much.
oh,
See,
see,
I'm
see, and
agreeing
see,
with
But
my father.
he
Okay.
may talk a
Hey
little too
Keith,
much.
I can't help you with this one, Keith, because you got three of them going at you right
I
now.
know it's
You open up a can of worms. Listen,
in other words, if you want him to get into your feelings and let you get it out and understand you, it's got to be reciprocal. Okay, you have to understand how he thinks and what he needs to understand you. Okay, because
Keith, right now, I'm not concerned about what you think. I'm concerned about how I
how
feel.
you
I'm
feel
dealing with
exactly.
my feelings.
Yeah, that's true. But it's also, the thing is, going forward, you have to understand. Okay, I have to know when to kind of taper it off because now I've given him too much on his plate. He can't eat it all. Got to give him time.
You're the man. You're supposed to eat it all.
And see, that was
This
well,
is
see, well, let me go ahead,
this is
Simone.
where I believe emotional intelligence comes in
hmm
because I have not encountered many men who could not ride with me in a conversation because I was overloading them with too many words. I have not experienced that. I'm sure it is the case with some men, but it's not.
Most
It's
men, most men. And it depends on who you are because what did you say? You're raised with a father, right? Okay.
yeah.
So
I mean,
so you're more direct probably than most women.
Well, let me say,
I just don't know how many men of the population are
Ooh,
overloaded with too
ooh,
many words.
ooh.
I have personally never experienced that of all the men that I know and have met and have
Uh-huh.
had conversations with. That wasn't the issue. Too many words was not the issue. Now, whether or not he was listening with the intent to understand,
hmm
whether his ego was invited to the conversation,
hmm
whether he was thinking,
hmm
listening with misogynistic ears, what his position was
He
on
is.
women's intelligence in
Uh-huh.
general.
Yeah.
Like all of those things come into play, but too
hmm
many words,
Yeah.
not
nah,
the issue.
I'm telling you as a man, because I hear this all the time. Okay, bro, why does she talk so much? What is she trying to get a point? Why doesn't she just get to the point? What is it? Oh, dude, slow down. Let her get it out. And don't concentrate on the facts. Concentrate on the feelings because the facts are not as important. And men are looking for facts.
You know
Yeah.
what? Let me ask the question. We have Dr. Stanley Berry on the phone
Mm-hmm.
from Michigan. He probably can give us some idea about that because even with dealing with patients, but I mean, let's talk about that. Even when you have patients as a physician, do you find that men have less to say, or women want to go all around the bush? You trying to get to another patient, she trying to tell you. She tried to give you the whole history. Come on, Dr. Berry, talk about that.
And unmute yourself, Dr. Berry.
Unmute yourself. And
You,
we're
you,
just talking about how
you,
women.
yeah.
Can you
Okay, there
hear
you
me
go.
now?
Yeah, we got
Yes,
you.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. So, no, I don't encounter a lot of patients who are, very talkative. And I'd say 15% of the time their mates are with them. And in terms of my technique for seeing patients, and it's so funny because I was doing this for years. I learned it from my mother. I always sit down. I'm
hmm
6'5", and that does a lot, I think, to facilitate and unintimidate people. But what I want to get to is something Dr. Rosie said, which I really agree with. As men, we want to solve problems,
hmm
and so that's why men, when we're hearing a conversation or when we're listening, I don't want to use that word hearing now because it's become a bad word today. But when we are listening to the conversation,
hmm
we always want to jump in and solve the problem.
hmm
And so sometimes Simone, I think you mentioned EQ. My EQ, I think, and you can bash me for this if you want. I'm open to being bashed. My EQ is that you have to have the wherewithal to figure out when the woman wants to have you help with a solution and
hmm
when she wants you to staffu. You all are familiar with that acronym, right?
hmm
And just sit there and listen.
Let it download.
Staffu is shut the. And so sometimes women just want to vent, just like men do. And
That's
when
it.
they're in venting mode, they don't want the solution. They want to get their feelings out, and they want to have you listen. And so in that context, I think that would avoid a lot of problems if we would recognize that we're not being the designated problem solver.
No.
I agree. I totally, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, the patience, and then what Somone was talking about, the emotional intelligence. We have to be able to identify when a woman is venting versus when a woman is actually asking for help. Because I know what I had to learn was when I'm hearing the woman talking, and I can't get a word in, after she's finished, I'll say, "Are you finished?" She said, "Yes, it's okay. Let me just make sure I understand this. Is this the point of the conversation where you're just venting, or is this the part of the conversation that you want some feedback?" Because what I'm doing now is I'm trying to identify where she's at and where she's coming from. So now that I know her style, I now know exactly how to listen. I know how to be attentive. I know how to be able to connect versus, like Dr. Rosie said, trying to, and I was guilty of doing that, trying to help her, trying to fix her problems and trying to, and that's not what she wanted. And I remember one woman told me, she's like, "Ricky, I don't need you. I don't need you to give me no advice. I just need you to listen." And she only had to say that one time. And I got it because after she got it out, she was so calm. Then she said, "Okay, would you like to come over for some wine and movies?"
Well, what did I say? Let her get it out, right?
That's it. Let her get
Get it out.
But see, but this is the thing, Keith, and I appreciate what you said, but you have a lot of men who don't know how to handle a woman and allow her the platform to get it out by asking the questions to get an understanding once she's finished talking versus getting so impatient and saying, "You know what, she just talking." Okay, yeah, but do you know why?
You know what, Ricky, I tell men all the time, okay, if you have a woman, whether she's your girlfriend or your wife, okay, your designated job is to let her download on you. That's your designated job, okay? When she wants to get her emotions out, that is but you're rolling your eyes. "Oh man, I don't feel like hearing this for the next 45 minutes." To do, that's your job. You got to sit there, you got to listen, and you got to let her emotionally download on you. That's your job. Now sit there and listen.
And don't use the word venting. Don't say to a woman, "You just venting."
No, that's why
Ricky, that's the wrong word. When you say venting, that's like what I'm saying is not important. I'm just wasting time. It's not meaningful. I'm just saying, since we're talking about women are from Venus and men are from Mars, so we're talking about things that set us off.
That's why I use the word download.
Right. I have to claim the guilt for introducing the V word. So I won't use the H word and I won't use the B word, at least for the rest of the conversation.
But but this is all a learning experience with being able to understand women and women understand the man. Now, I would like to flip the script for the women. I think it's important for women to know also that men need to be heard as well. Because a lot of times after we've heard all of the talking and expressing and the downloading, and when we need time to talk and express, a lot of times we're not allowed to finish. A lot of times we're not allowed to talk because we're being cut off and so I think when you look at that, men also need to be heard as well, just as much as women. And I know for me, after I've spent about 10 to 15 minutes listening to what the woman is saying, and then after I started, "You finished?" She said she was. And then once I started to talk,
she wasn't finished.
She wasn't finished because after the first sentence, she cut me off. She said, I said, well, "Hold on." She said, No, you have to understand. I said, "Well, hold on. Like, I just listened to you for 15 minutes. Can I get my turn?" But see, you don't. Okay. So I said, this is how I said, so how important is it for us to have a dialogue if it's not going both ways?
Well, let's look at it like this. Women don't want you to fix their problem. They just want you to hear them. When men come to you, they want you to fix it. They want you to help them solve it. They tend to want your opinion about what they need to do. Now, be very clear about that. That is different. Because men don't open up a lot, but when they do, they're really seeking your advice. It's more than just to listen to me. It's like, what you think? Am I right, man?
Yeah,
Come
Dr.
on, am I right? Say yay or nay.
Dr. Rose, that's a key. That's a key term, right? Because I use it with my men all the time, right? Okay. When a woman comes, the first thing you have to tell her, and I've had dialogues with groups of women, right? You have to ask her how she feels first, okay? Because that's what she's trying to express. How do you feel first, okay? With men, you have to go, how do you think first, okay? And then how do you feel? Because men.
But go back to the answer to the question. Do men most time want you to help them, and women do not? That's what I want to clarify. We're talking about women are from Venus and men are from Mars. So I want to clear that point. When men come to you, they're seeking your advice to help them to figure it out. I want to know, is that true? Because we only here trying.
It is. Men want to know. Ricky, you can chime in and say yeah or nay. Men want to know what you think. What do you think about the problem that I just told you? Okay. Yeah, that's what men want to know.
Yeah. Now I'm very, and I agree with you, Doctor. I'm very clear about when I'm seeking, advice or help or think, because I'll say, okay, so what do you think about this?
Exactly. Say it again.
I'll say, what do you think about this? Like I'll put it out there because I want to make sure that intentionally speaking, you're going to meet me where I'm at and you're going to give me what I need versus the way women talk. It's a fill in the most, and those are the differences.
The problem with women is we're not really asking you for your opinion.
No.
We're telling you
how we feel.
We're telling you what we think. So when we're telling you what we think and then your response is something different, yes, you will get, no, you didn't understand anything I just said for the last 10 minutes because you started off totally wrong. I was trying to make my point. Let me make my point and then let that sit in, because once you say but, then that whole 10 minutes was wasted. I have to start all over again.
In other words, you don't understand how I feel, okay?
Exactly. But women have to also understand, because we think men are so macho and feeling and things like that. Yeah. But we also, as women, have to understand that men really are very, very sensitive. They are. Even though they try to play that macho role, they're very sensitive. It's sometimes
Charles laughing at you.
Yeah, but it's true though. Charles laughing.
Jump in, Charles.
Charles laughing because it's true. They're looking when the man wants the woman to lift him up, to let him feel like he's the man, he's taking care of business. When he comes to you with a point, it's okay, even if you don't agree with it all the way, it's okay just to listen to it. And then later on, when you want to make a different point to it, bring it up slowly. But you don't have to just you have to remember, men have feelings too. It's not just about a woman.
Oh my goodness! Say that again.
Yeah, it's not just about the woman.
I think
they really do.
Yep.
I think the cross-sectional point to that is that everybody's correct. But the thing is when you're getting into that discussion and you're actually having that conversation, you kind of lose it a little bit and you don't actually realize that you both have done the same thing where somebody's missing the point on either side. But everybody was right about that. I mean, that's what I was finding so amusing. Yeah. Is that, everybody has a point there. So, I mean, who wants to listen and who don't?
No, that's true, Charles. And also, too, and this is the beautiful thing about it. If we can just get to a place, men and women both, right, to a place where we respect each other's point of views and each other's feelings and where we're at, then that will give us an opportunity to have more healthier dialogue. I know for me, even though, let's say the woman didn't meet my initial need or question, right? I will then say, you know what? Can I ask you a question? I'm asking you this because of blah, blah. So what I'm doing is I'm not just settling, because let's say she missed it the first time. I'm not going to hold it against her. I'm going to rephrase a question, or I'm going to say it a different way. Why? Because if I'm intentional with what I'm asking for, it's my job to make sure I'm understood. A lot of times men don't have the patience or the tolerance. And so they'll just give it. And like the young lady said, we got feelings, right? And men get real sensitive and they just shut it down because they expect a woman just to figure it out. A lot of times a woman just ain't going to just figure it out. because she's still processing her own feelings. She's still processing her own emotions, and she's not as engaged as you want her to at that moment. So you have to have patience to help her get. You have to have patience to help her get there. And once she gets there, then she will be in tune to your emotions and feelings, and she'll be able to meet you exactly where you are.
Exactly.
And the other thing we have to recognize when a person doesn't get that, we need to understand when it's the time to lay the conversation on the table and pick it up later.
That's it.
I just want to drop that.
No, that's
good.
It's
a time
that's good.
to lay the conversation on the table. It's a time to table something because we're not connecting.
Yeah.
And it could be that we're not connecting because something else have happened to us during that day.
Yeah.
During that hour at work of something mental or physical going on. When you see you're not connecting, I think the best thing we can do to build strong relationship is to recognize when we're not on the same page.
Same page.
And Dr. Rosie, I think, and Ricky, if you in tune with this, I think men, especially with women, right, when they download, men need time to digest.
I don't like that word download.
No.
No.
Hold on. Let me explain why I use it. Okay, because this is from Jung, right? Jung says that
who is Jung? Wait. Who is
Carl Jung.
What color is he?
He's white. Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Keith. Listen to the man speak.
Where do we think we get psychiatry from?
I'm done.
Freud, okay?
You know what I think about psychiatrists. Okay, go ahead.
That's where we learn.
Oh, we got a doctor on the line. He want to throw a towel in there. Come on, doctor. What you gonna say? He's laughing.
He see they didn't even let you finish.
The reason I use the word download, especially when I talk to a man, all right, because a woman needs to transfer her feelings from a female brain to a male brain, and talking to another woman is not going to do it. Okay, so she needs to download what she feels on.
I don't like that word.
I know you don't, but the thing is, it's accurate. You might not like it, but it's accurate because she's transferring knowledge. That's what in computer terms that's what we call downloading, right?
I like transferring.
Okay, doctor. For you, I use transfer. Okay. For you, I use transfer. Even though transferring goes both ways, what she's trying to do is transfer her feelings onto you. Okay, so that you can digest it. And she can only do that with a male partner, okay? And normally it's a husband, a boyfriend, and sometimes it's just a male best friend, okay? Yeah. And the thing is that's what she needs. But the thing is, once it's transferred, Dr. Rosie, okay, and men have to digest it. Okay?
Yes, I like
we're not. In other words, the time that's why I said the overload, right? They're getting overloaded. They're getting because you guys are not sticking to just one point when you're actually transferring, right? You got maybe 12 points. He can't digest all that. He can only digest one point at a time. So he has to take some time and actually digest what you just said and think about it, and then he can come back to you. Well, I thought about this point, that point, that point, that point, that point. Now, which one of these points are most important?
That's interesting. That's really interesting to think that the man can only got a one-track mind. But
anyway,
I'm going ahead. I want to hear what Dr. Berry have to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Berry, unmute.
You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Reggie, you added a third word, the D word, the V word, the H word. But to your point of what you were talking about, in all reality, a light bulb just went off in my head. So test this one out. A woman may want, and this could go for men as well, a woman may want to transfer information.
Yes. Yeah,
but in terms of feelings, which we started off with a while ago, a woman wants to express her feelings.
Say it again, black man.
Yeah, express her feelings.
Yes.
So in the realm of expressing feelings, I think that's where we have to really concentrate on listening. And to Simone's point about I call it EQ, she called it AI, or EI, not AI, but EI, emotional intelligence. Yeah. We have to have the emotional intelligence to know when this is an expression of feeling, and that's the time to listen and be quiet. And if you knew me, you would know how hard it is for me to be quiet for significant length of time, I'm out.
Why is that, Doc? No, don't go away, don't run away. Why is that? Why is it hard?
It's less hard now that I've gotten older. I will put it that way.
But why is it difficult?
Because I grew up in a house full of talkers. In fact, if you came to my house and you didn't talk, there was something wrong with you. And we kind of touched on this, and you made me think about it. And again, this was earlier in the conversation. Mm-hmm. I find that I've tried to concentrate on being a good listener for a long time in my life. Mm-hmm. But I find as I've gotten older, for me, it's just more damn interesting to listen to people than it is for me to be yakking all the time.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You know what? And can I just interject something, Doc? You said it. You said a mouthful that you also sparked. No, really, you said a mouthful because you said you were raised in a household of talkers. Mm-hmm. And so your tolerance level, obviously was a certain way. But as you got older, you started to kind of understand and be a little bit more patient. As we were talking about earlier, you have to be patient in order to listen. Because a lot of times when a woman is speaking, expressing her feelings, you can't put no cap on that. You can't put her on no time clock. You can't say, okay, girl, you got 5 minutes. You can't do that. You have to be able to be emotionally intelligent enough to be able to listen. And one of the things that, and it's not in the chat, but I got a text, somebody's listening on the road. It says, I've learned and still learning to apply James 1:19. Those who are Christians are in the word. It says, know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Being quick to listen means that we train ourselves to wait for the whole story before diving in with our opinion. Slow to speak is the flip side of that. We control our words and don't blurt out everything that comes into our heads.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I want to say that I heard that women think in compartments. Women have compartments. You see the wires, they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
So women have all these thoughts going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I hear, and then you can verify if this is true, that men have compartments too, and they have one big middle compartment. And that's the nothing compartment. So when a man says, when the woman says, what are you thinking about? And the man says, nothing, you have to believe him. They're in that compartment.
It is a nothing compartment. Yeah, there is.
That's true.
He's clearing his, he's trying to find his center where there's nothing,
right?
compartments
in there.
That's true. No, that's true.
That is true.
I think Charles has his hand up.
Doctor.
Well, some women would believe that we were always in that nothing compartment. But I think the other thing is that I think there's a difference between having those compartments and being able to compartmentalize.
Right.
And, I think that men are probably much more accustomed to compartmentalizing.
Yes.
And so, something happens over here that really is emotionally significant for a man, but then, he can compartmentalize that and then go out and work on a car or do whatever he's going to do. I think that probably have more difficulty compartmentalizing like that.
Yeah, they do.
That's a big difference. That's why a woman can hold the baby, giving the baby a bottle, stirring the pot, cooking at the same time, and reaching over to answer the phone. And I think when we look at that compartmental standpoint, then we won't be asking men to do more than one thing at a time, because women tend to do that.
Yes.
To give them the whole thing. I do this and do this. They want to know what you want me to do first. Don't.
Yes, exactly.
Don't transfer.
Guys like that.
Yeah, well, that's where our brains are wired.
Yeah, that's how we're wired.
That's where we're wired.
Yes, and that's a beautiful thing to know how each other's brains work.
Yeah.
Because when a man says nothing, if he's really not, that's it. That's our brains are wired like that, and so.
And you know what we think? What women not? I mean, I know better now, but I know how a lot of women think. What you mean nothing?
Yes.
They don't believe that you was thinking about nothing. Something on your mind. What is it? No, you got something going on, right? You got something. What's on? Tell me. Why you hiding it? Why you trying to keep it? What's up? You don't trust me? We're gonna go into a whole spiel.
There you
when you
go.
say
I
nothing.
think one of the great points that I'm taking away from this conversation today is to do our best to state what our intention is for the conversation as at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because we say people can't read our minds, but we're in essence saying here that the person is supposed to know
Mm-hmm.
why we're having the conversation or what the point of us sharing the information is.
Yes.
So I think it would be helpful, to Ricky's point earlier, to state your intention in
Mm-hmm.
the beginning. So I have a question for you. I want your advice on this. I need your help on
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to share something with you. So like saying those things right at the beginning before you start talking lets the person who's listening know what to
Yeah.
listen for.
That's good. No,
I
that's
think
good.
that's good.
That's good. That's
Mm-hmm.
good. Dr. Rosie, we already over 1 minute. So
Oh
what you
my
want to
God.
do? What you want to do? It's your show. I'm
Yeah.
just the vessel. What you want to do?
Talk about your town hall, Dr.
Oh
Rosie.
yeah, we having a town hall meeting tonight at 1430 West Manchester Avenue in LA, and it's so critical. It's an emergency meeting to look at the things that we are not aware of that's taking place in our community, and the things that's happening that we are not at the table. And this is whatever's taking place now. It's not just for you. It's going to impact the next generation. So it's important that we look at now what's going to happen to the children down the line if we don't do something now, particularly in Los Angeles. Now, I want to also overly compliment Ricky as being, and Simone for being the co-host of the show, and you guys, Shawana is also one of the co-hosts of our show. She's been missing in action for a while.
I've been in Greece. I've been traveling.
I don't want to
And
hear all
like,
that. I don't want to hear all that. I'm sick of it.
Valley girl.
Yeah,
I've been enjoying life.
she's the valley girl.
Okay,
I'm
the
not
book,
going to
hey,
even
my
listen to her.
manifestation
Yeah.
planner is out August 1st,
Yeah.
2025 to July
Mm-hmm.
2026. Pick it up. It's on Amazon. Absolutely amazing piece to have 4 months before January 1st gets here. Pick it up.
I heard about that. It's really great. We got all these authors on the line. That's amazing. Dr. Stanley Berry, he's an author. Oh my God. I'm going to bring his book up to you all next week and talk about it. It's really good. Okay. We have Simone, who's an author. Ricky is an author. Shawana is an author. We got all these
Yeah.
writers
Dr.
on the line.
Rosie helped me become the author. Thank you,
All
Dr.
right now.
Rosie.
All right now. Talk about it.
She's the mother of all these books. Okay.
I'm the OBGYN, baby. I deliver book
Deliver all the
babies.
books.
Dr. Stanley is the OBGYN. He bringing in babies, but I bring in book babies.
Hey,
Okay,
There you
that's
go.
what I do.
you should
So
be
you
book
guys,
baby mama.
yeah, we're gonna
My baby
definitely do a
mama.
part 3 later. We're gonna bring in a part 3. It's no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Stanley, give them the title of your book,
It's called A Fight for Full Disclosure.
and you can imagine it's a thriller.
Wow.
Yeah. It's briefly, it's about a woman who goes to the hospital for a routine procedure. Things don't go well, and then the hospital has to decide whether they're going to come clean and tell what really happened.
Yeah. Oh, that's really important because Kaiser does that all the time. Okay. Really important.
Now you're trying to get me put out the hospital. Already can't get in a church. You,
You can get out the hospital, Dr.
Yeah,
Rosie.
yeah, that's a real, especially now with them cutting the budget and stuff
it's
like
a
that.
good
It's going
case
to
to
be
talk
real
about that
important right
book.
now. Is that right now
Yeah.
because they're going to start cutting budgets and that's going to happen a lot. So that's really important right now.
So we're
Yeah.
gonna have you on as a guest one of these days too. So we're gonna really dissect and really take a look at what's happening in the medical field
Yeah.
and what people need to be
Yeah.
aware of.
Yeah.
You know, as an advocate for your parents, for your children. I know we're running over Ricky. You, Simone, you all did a great job.
They
you
did.
know,
Thank you.
They
and you
did.
guys just spread the
Amen.
word. Did you say something, Dr. Barry?
I just said amen.
Oh, okay. So you guys spread the word. Tell the people get off of Channel 2, Channel 4, Fox News, and all that confusion, and turn in to Express Yourself hour, because that's where the rubber meets the road. Right here, baby. See y'all next week.
Dr.
Yeah.
Rosie, I will say one thing. I have to correct you. It's Fox.
Oh, Fox. All right, you guys.
All
Y'all
righty.
know what to do. Same time next week,
All
same
right.
place. See you guys later.
Take
Have a
care.
Alrighty.
great. Welcome back,
Wishing you
Shawana.
amazing
Charles,
show. Thank
Charles,
you.
The Valley
Atlanta.
Girl
Let her
came
know
home.
where to
I'm
come.
back
Valley
home.
Girl came home. Charles back with us.